Hi, good morning to all the lovers of our culinary heritage. For those who have been following us on Stories for a Better Normal, Pandemic and Climate Pathways, we've really gone beyond what is required to cope with COVID-19. We've gone beyond what requires to cope with the challenges of the coronavirus. This has evolved into anecdotes, stories, learnings, knowledge, sharing of wisdom, expertise, and getting experts and people who love life in various aspects. In the past weeks, actually the past month since the pandemic started, we, together with the Mother Earth Foundation, Sonia Mendoza is always online, our partner in ecological solid waste management and segregation of waste at source, recycling, and composting. I'm sure she'll be texting me many issues again to remind all our chefs, all our viewers of strict implementation of Republic Act 9003. Also, our partner here is my dear friend Red Constantino of the Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities. Who does not want to have a sustainable city, a sustainable environment, an LGU which is resilient, a barangay, a sitio, a home that is adaptive to nature. Another partner are young people all over the country, all over the world, trained by no less than my good friend, Vice President Al Gore. The Climate Reality Philippines is engaged with us in trying to propagate sustainable mobility, sustainable food systems, resilient food systems, food gardening, culinary heritage, the important health protocols of COVID-19, and many more. And of course, this webinar would not be possible without the Climate Change Commission. Again, for those who are just tuned in now, and for those who may not be too familiar with this small agency of government, it may be small, but it has a Herculean task to mainstream disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation and mitigation into all local governments, 1,400 of them, all barangays, 42,000 of them, all Filipinos, 108 million of us, into our daily life. Wow. What am I saying today? What is Lauren Legarda talking about today? From sustainable mobility to resilient food systems, from Forest Garden Act to ecological solid waste management. But I will not lecture like I sometimes do as a policymaker, as a lawmaker, as a teacher. I would like to listen. This is an advocacy I've had since long ago as a young child in Malabon who used to savor the cooking, the culinary heritage of my Lola Maming, who is from Antique. But she migrated to Malabon with my lolo, and so yung aming pagkaing Malabon na sigurado akong eksperto, nakikita ko sa screen, ang ating mga panauhin ngayon. Now, joining me is a consultant of the Climate Change Commission who has taught my staff how to operationalize my laws. And she's like a soulmate in a way, just like Attorney Ipat Luna of a DNR, who I hope is also with us. Attorney Paula Aberasturi is also with us. For a change today, I would like Paula, I hope she's ready, but if she's not online, I will do the honors of introducing our guests for today. If you have, but if you're not ready to do that, then I will do it. Are you with us, Paula? Since Paula is active with the slow food movement, and she was the one who actually taught many of our staff in the Senate then on how to convert a small patch of backyard into tons and tons of food. Because every square meter of food that we do not, every square meter of land that we do not grow into food could be a family that could have been fed. But let me just, if Paula's not on the line yet, okay. Our first guest is a food writer, a book designer, a visual artist, an awardee. I can go on and write and speak about his writings. I've been reading about him, actually, award-winning book designer and the author of The Republic of Taste. You know, I'd love to have you tell us where we can purchase, where we can acquire all your books. And in fact, just on this note, I will buy, okay, during this day of pandemic, wag nang bigay, everybody needs to earn a buck. So my office will buy one set of all your books, and the Facebook viewers, the first Facebook viewer will receive one book of Mr. Ramos. Isn't that interesting? We will also be giving away the DA kits. The Department of Agriculture is a partner here, and we have the DA starter kits. If you have not started planting in your farm, in your backyard, in your little window, hanggang sa resikulong pasok, sana ang aking mga panauhin ngayon, they will join me in advocating urban gardening and planting in every little open space possible. Okay, so lumilihis na ako. Kasama natin ang isang napakagaling na author at visual artist, ang kanyang mga libro, Republic of Taste, The Untold Stories of Cavite Cuisine. You know, Mami, I'll ask you later. Umikot ako noon sa Cavite, ialahanin ko kung sino yung aking guide. Napakagaling. He's the tourism officer of Region 4A. Let me try. Maybe my staff would know. Dila at bandila ang paghahanap ng pambansang panlasa ng Pilipinas. My question is, have your books been sold and exhibited in the Frankfurt Book Fair? And if not, I have a meeting tomorrow with Jürgen Boos, the head of the Frankfurt Book Fair and the National Book Board former chair, and let's make sure that all the books of Mr. Ige Ramos are included. Is Paula joining us already or not yet with us? So we have Mr. Ramos. How are you, Mr. Ramos?
Hi, good morning.
Hi, sorry, mahabang introduction ko sa'yo, ha?
Thank you, thank you. I managed to just like make it really short and sweet.
Yes, sorry, you're in a hurry, Mr. Ramos?
No, I'm not in a hurry. No, I'm just saying it's short and sweet.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you quite well. You know, I was hoping, sorry, yes, I see your books. I was hoping to see also, yeah, your books in the background. Maybe you can put it up later, right? Okay, and joining us needs no introduction, our next guest. I can't see her yet on screen, but she's Asia's Best Female Chef of 2016. She's actually a family friend. My late mama and her mama were good friends, and her aunt, and everybody knows her. Everybody, of course, savors the food that she prepares. Margarita Flores, as you know, runs several restaurants. She's a creator of food. Is that tama yung creator of food? Yes. And hindi ko na siguro sasabihin lahat ng mga accomplishments ni Margarita. She's also been named as the United Nations Ambassador for Gastronomic Tourism. That's so interesting. Do we have Margarita on the online now? I can't see her on my screen.
Hi, Deputy Speaker. I'm here.
Yes, very good.
So nice to see you.
Yes, good morning. I was hoping, just like Mr. Ige Ramos, I wanted to see his books in the background. Iaakyat na lang, papakita ni Mr. Ramos. I was hoping that you would set up in your kitchen.
But never mind, my pepper meals are a good enough view in the back.
Ano yung pepper mill? Kala ko mga trophy yung nasa likod. Sige.
No, that's my pepper mill collection. And it's always,
okay.
Yeah. So, and I use Philippine pepper in all of them because we have pepper. We grow pepper in the Philippines. So it's nice to harvest that and put it in the pepper mills.
Alam mo naman, nakapunta ka na sa aking maliit na farm na minana ko sa lola ko.
Yes.
Siguro, tuturuan mo kaming mga maliliit na farmers na hindi naman ekta-ektarya ang lupa kung paano magtanim ng pepper. Yung pagsabi yung pepper na pula, yung bell pepper na pula at saka yung berde at yung mga siling labuyo, iyan ba yung mga pepper na sinasabi mong akma sa Pilipinas o ibang klase pa ng pepper?
Actually, yung green peppercorns actually grow all over the Philippines. So those are the ones that you can dry and put in the pepper mills.
So ito yung aking, pasensya na hindi ako masyadong marunong sa expertise niyo. Ito ba yung pepper na green na malaki?
Actually, paminta, it's the green peppercorns. Ige will know also where else they grow. But I think they grow all over the Philippines, and you just dry them until they become black, and then you can put them inside the pepper mill.
So yung mga pepper pala na buo na itim ay galing sa loob ng aking berdeng pepper na kinakain at pinapatuyo lang yung loob.
Actually, the green, yung mga sili na green pepper, red pepper, yellow pepper, the seeds are not used as peppercorns. It's really what's the scientific name na nga for the green peppercorns? It grows all over Asia, actually.
Di bale, aalamin natin yan para matuto tayo at hindi naman alagain masyado yan. Sinasabi mo, it grows all over the Philippines. So it would be nice not to buy my pepper in the grocery because I grow my own food. And one thing that I do not grow is my own pepper. But if you will tell me what to plant and how to dry it so that I grow my own pepper, I will have my own container of homemade pepper. Wow.
Yeah, so Paula can help us with that as well. I'm sure that
where is Paula? I asked Paula Attorney Paula to be online, but she's not online.
There she is.
No, I am.
You're there. I've been looking for
you. But I asked that you be the host. I'll just be here to support.
No, I wanted you to introduce them because they're the slow food movement and you're the food expert, not me. Okay, I write laws while you anyway. So it's my honor to introduce all our guests and the president of the Davao Tourism Association. How interesting. I'm sure the gastronomic delights of Region 11, even of Mindanao, just like last year we had Datu Sharif Pendatun, who talked about Maranao or Moro food. Now we will have the president of the Davao Tourism Association, Gachi Gatchalian, and he is the president and COO of Saging Republic. Wow, interesting. I've been there, I think, Saging Republic. It's one of the restaurants in Davao. Yes. Sarap.
Mabuhay og madayaw. Maayong adlaw from Davao City. Yes, yes, Deputy Speaker, you've been to our restaurant.
Yes. Sana pakita mo, yan, pakita mo naman ang itsura. Next time tayo, iikot tayo, hindi tayo static sa ating mga silya.
It's part of my slide presentation po.
Oh, very good. Sige, I would like to see that. And of course, kasama din natin yung Giwan Recovery and Sustainable Development Group for Resilience of Eastern Samar. So actually, we have Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. And Giwan, as we know, just yesterday, I had a webinar with the National Historical Commission on the Road to 500 on the 500 years commemoration of the arrival of Magellan to our shores. And Giwan in Samar, Eastern Samar, is very historic. But this time, we don't talk about Magellan. We don't talk about Lapu-Lapu. We talk about the Giwan Recovery and Resilience Group headed by Rectito Melquiades. Is it correct, Mr. Melquiades?
Correct po, Deputy Speaker.
Kayo sa Giwan, nakakatuwa. You've done cultural mapping with Professor Eric. Correct? Yes, long ago. Ang mayor ba ninyo is the same mayor who did the culture mapping or bago na ngayon?
She's back. Nakabalik siya ngayon after completing the 3 terms.
What is her name, Mayor?
Annalisa Gonzalez Kwan po.
Kwan, yes. Because
Liza Gonzalez.
yes, is it Kwan, correct?
Opo, opo.
Say hello to her because I know her and her daughter is also a historian or an anthropologist who's been to my
historian
office.
po.
Yes, correct. And I know there's a little story nung panahon ng Typhoon Yolanda, ng Haiyan, di ba ang unang landfall ay dyan sa inyo, sa Eastern Samar, sa Giwan, ang unang sinagip daw ni Mayor Kwan ay yung resulta ng culture mapping nila ni Professor. Tama?
Opo.
Mag-mentor nga kayo sa amin sa Antique, sa 18 LGUs kung pwede. Hindi lamang sa mga tangible heritage ng mga gusali, kundi na rin yung mga katutubong kaalaman at pati na rin ang culinary heritage gaya ng pag-uusapan natin ngayon. I know that you're also into radio, so you're a very good communicator. Okay, I will stop talking because I want to listen to Mr. Ramos. I want to listen to Ms. Gaita Flores. I want to listen to Mr. Gatchalian and to Mr. Melquiades. And joining us, of course, is the National Commission on Culture and Arts, our partner in many of the things that we do, Arvin Manuel Villalon, National Cultural Mapping Facilitator. Naumpisahan na ba natin ang ating cultural mapping, Mr. Arvin? Ayan, marami na tayong kasama ha. Please, yung ating pinangako na gagawin natin hard copy, unahan na natin ang virtual. So we keep on uploading the cultural mapping of culinary heritage of different towns and regions in the country.
Right. Good morning, Deputy Speaker. Thanks for having me again. It's so nice to be back in your program.
You are a permanent fixture because we will do cultural mapping.
Yes, katatapos lang ng meeting namin and kahit may COVID, ma'am, talagang tuloy pa rin ang ating cultural mapping. So we're trying to find ways. Mahirap lang ang mapping ngayon dahil kasi with all the restrictions, but patuloy pa rin yan if we want to preserve culture also and to promote
Very
culture.
good. This is so interesting to have various guests, designers and authors and experts and Asia's best chefs and LGU chefs and LGU experts. And so let's start with the basic question. Perhaps Mr. Ramos, who has written books and who has designed books, etc., can answer. And perhaps all of you, bakit mahalaga ang culinary heritage? Ano ang kahalagahan nito? At ano ba ang simpleng pagpapaliwanag ng tinatawag na culinary heritage? Ano ang koneksyon nito sa panahon ng pandemya? Ano ang importansya sa ating pang-araw-araw na buhay? Magsimula tayo kay Ige Ramos, kay Margarita, and down the line. Thank you.
Mahalaga ang culinary arts no sa ating buhay kasi ito yung identity natin. Bahagi ito ng ating identity. So ngayon ang gagawin ko ay I will present Rediscovering Hyperlocal Food Ecosystem. Ito yung mga ginawa ko sa Cavite. I was born and raised in Cavite City. And as you know, Cavite, malaki ang inambag ng Cavite sa pagbuo ng ating republika. Alam natin lahat yan. Pero ang kasawiang palad, our food is not as popular or famous as Pampanga or Iloilo or Negros. But here, I will show you what I did. No? So ito yung vanishing salt beds of Kawit, Cavite. Dito ako lumaki sa malapit sa Kawit. I'm actually from Cavite City. But itong tradition na ito, itong irasan ay nawawala na. What motivated me in writing my book was the fear of losing our tradition. And salt is one of the most important ingredients in our foodways. No, because it's used to preserve like fish. It's used for fermentation, and itong salt bed na ito na bahagi sa Santa Isabel, ito na lang ang naiiwang salt beds. Actually, because of the salt law, na pirmahan noong 1997, I think, unti-unting nawala ang mga salt beds, yung mga irasan sa Cavite, dahil walang masyadong social preparation because ang batas ng yung asin law ay nakatuon sa health and nutrition, no, yung iodization of the salt. Pero walang social ano tawag dito, walang social preparation ang mga tao. At nung ito yung kinunang ko tong picture na to noong 2016, pero 4 years after, actually wala na siya. So this is gone. This salt tradition is gone. This is actually one of the oldest part of our, our intangible cultural resource. Na
wala na itong salt bed na ito. What is it now? Ano siya ngayon?
Most of them are converted into subdivisions.
Wow.
Because yun nga, no, bahagi ito ng royal salt beds nung panahon ng galleon trade, no? So ito yung fear ko na kasi as early as like 10 years ago, I was doing my own food mapping, my own cultural mapping as a hobby. But it became very, very serious to me because nung nawala yung salt bed na ito, kasi may malaki ang kaugnayan ng salt beds nung ecosystem, no? Ng Kawit, dun sa, if you're familiar with the Salinas Tinapa, which is that in Rosario, Cavite. Nung nawalan ng asin sa Kawit, unti-unting naubos na rin yung mga artisan tinapa makers. In fact, we don't use the word artisan before. Sila talaga yung grassroots community na gumagawa ng no? Dahil nga may kaugnayan yung paggawa ng tinapa dun sa paggawa ng asin sa Kawit. These are like two separate towns. Meron silang symbiotic relationship. Nung iodized na yung salt na ginagamit nila, naging purple yung tinapa. So again, because of the iodine content. So ngayon parang because of the law na walang masyadong social preparation, yung mga hyper communities like this, kasi nga it's actually illegal to manufacture salt na walang iodine ayon sa batas. And then it's also illegal to sell salt na unless it's used for something. Pero hindi natin alam na merong life cycle, tapos merong yung mga natural salt na tulad ng ginagawa nung araw na non-iodized. Ito yung mga fleur de sel na ginagawa sa France, no? So can we go to the next slide?
My question lang is, Mr. Ramos, itong salt bed na pinakita mo, was this private land and a private salt bed? Kaya ito'y na-convert sa subdivision?
Yes. Yeah.
Hindi gobyernong proyekto.
Hindi gobyerno.
Kaya,
no, hindi.
Yung salt bed, parang tubig siya, no? Malambot ang lupa o tubig?
Yeah, actually, it's kung titingnan mo yung topography ng salt beds, kung saan siya, malapit siya sa mga marshlands, sa mga mangrove areas. So ito yung tapos normally meron siyang dinadaan ng river tsaka kung saan nagmi-meet yung salt water tsaka yung fresh water.
Pero pag malapit siya sa marshland or wetland, hindi yan stable pag lagyan mo ng mabibigat gaya ng mga housing project?
Hindi talaga.
At pangalawa ay hindi maaring i-reclaim or i-convert. So I'm surprised that you said wala na siya dahil
actually,
mga wetlands ay hindi maaari.
Oo, this particular salt bed, it still exists, pero lang siya, baha na parang fish pond na lang siya. In fact, growing up in Cavite, going to Manila, so from Kawit hanggang Bacoor, hanggang Las Piñas, Parañaque, lahat yan salt beds eh. That's why like there's a parang a barangay or barrio in Las Piñas called Pulang Lupa because of the tisa that used in you know, in salt beds. Kasi nga nung pinag-aralan ko yung salt beds, yung ano yung ecosystem na nito, parang it makes sense eh kasi merong engineering involved, there's science involved, there's nature involved. And then walang masyadong hindi mo nakikita talaga yung ano eh, yung human intervention hindi destructive, no? So I just want to go to the next slides. So ito yung framework ko, no? So basically gastronomy is the what I'm actually doing, no? So merong 4 na modalities ang gastronomy. Ito yung ingredients, geography, ethnicity, and technology. So pag pinagsama mo yung dalawang modalities na ingredients and technology, nandiyan yung culinary, tapos ingredients and geography, nandiyan yung terroir, no? Yung terroir, medyo mahabang usapan niya, no? Papaliwanag ko na lang in the next slides. Geography and ethnicity, it's geopolitics, technology and ethnicity, trade, no? So ngayon, nung na-develop ko yung hyper-local food ecosystem, pwede natin ipagsama yung culture, nature, and science, no? So science and nature, we can actually identify different outcomes. Ito yung sustainability, nutrition and well-being, then culinary traditions. And then, pwede nating ilagay ang iba't ibang institusyon within these modalities. Next slide. So, ang Cavite ay kilala sa ating history, no? Sa ating kasaysayan. So, kung makikita mo si Aguinaldo, sa Kawit, no? Nandiyan yung tradisyon ng paggawa ng tabak, may pandayan. Tapos, nakakatuwang isipin na ang revolusyon ay nagsimula sa isang lihan, isang kanda, no? Sa Pasong Kalabaw sa bayan ng General Trias. Tapos makikita mo din ang kasaysayan ng pagkain ay nakatuon ang kasaysayan ng Pilipinas nung ginawa natin yung Malolos Convention. At ang Malolos menu ay gusto nating ipakita sa buong mundo na kaya nating makipagpantayan sa iba't ibang klaseng lahi, no? So yung ating menu ay nakasulat sa French, sa wikang Frances. Kasi nga ang wikang Frances during that time hindi pa English ang language of diplomacy, because ang language of diplomacy during that time is French, and it's also the language of food. So naisip na nila yon nung ating founding fathers na medyo sophisticated na rin sila, no? So next. Next slide, please. Yeah.
Do you have a mapping of all the salt beds remaining in our country? Like in Lawaan, in Antique, binubuhay din po namin yung aming asin doon, at sa panahon ng after COVID, kung maaring bumisita kayo para makita yung aming traditional na mga salt beds sa Antique. Meron sa Lawaan. Oo.
That would be interesting kasi nga ito yung ito nga yung parang hindi naman exactly pinaglalaban, pero ito talaga yung realities, no? Like there are certain laws na napatupad. Maganda siya. I'm a fan of Dr. Flavier, pero walang masyadong social preparation na nangyari dun sa mga hyper-local communities. So because of that that loss, no? So I was able to facilitate or to organize my thoughts na okay, dito tayo pupunta, no? Geography as culinary destiny. So kung ano yung kalupaan natin, yung terroir, yung geography natin, ito talaga yung yung kung saan darating ang pagkain natin, like whether it's galleon trade and the discovery of the arrival of Magellan in the Philippines. That's part of geography, especially galleon trade. And then kung makikita nyo ang iba't ibang, let's say, ito yung flatland sa Noveleta, Cavite. Ito yung buong probinsya ng Cavite, no? Itong mapa. And then ito yung...
Yes, before I'm sorry that the salt really struck me. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Ramos.
Sorry.
I also invite you later on to look into the salt in Albuquerque, in Bohol. You may know that, or may not know that. Yung kanilang industriya ng asin ay napaka-interesante.
Nakita ko po yun. Ginagamit yung isang restaurant dito sa Maynila.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Sige, patuloy po. Yung geography
as culinary destiny ay isang mahalagang pagninilay or mahalagang ang geography talaga ay bahagi talaga ng ating cultural destiny. Kung ano tayo ngayon bilang bansa at kung ano yung kinakain natin is because of geography. Bodies of water, river, lands, valleys. Kaya ang Cavite ay ganun yung pagkain because of geography. Merong coastal areas, merong flatlands at merong highlands, no? So ito yung ito yung pintuan ng isang simbahan sa Maragondon, yung Asuncion, no? Tapos pinapakita dito yung kahalagahan ng geography at nung geographical exchanges, no? Like tulad ng kamote, ng tomato, ng guyabano. Ito yung parang bahagi ng kultura natin na galing Mexico. Tapos ito naman yung ating crops like palay na ginawang pinipig, tapos merong mga yung nyog, bigas, muscovado at kung ano-ano. Tapos ito naman yung flatlands, no? Ito yung mga marshland na hanggang ngayon, ito yung parang it's not private land but it's part of the Philippine Estates Authority. Pero meron mga nakatirang mga dating informal settlers tapos parang dinaputize sila na para maging guardians nung area. So next slide. Mabilis lang tayo. Okay. So ang pagkain natin ay nakatuon sa season, panahon, time and ritual, no? So marami tayong pagkain nung pinag-aralan ko yung food waste sa Cavite, karamihan ng pagkain na mas mahalaga pala ang pagkain hindi Pasko kundi yung Pasko ng pagkabuhay at Kwaresma. Mas marami tayong pagkain mas maraming pagkain sa Cavite na lumalabas pag panahon ng Kwaresma kaysa sa Pasko, no? So nandiyan yung mga prosesyon, yung mga penitensya, yung mga palaspas at ang dami-dami nilang mga pagkaing nakatuon, no? Because importante ang ritual, mahalaga ang season, no? Yung panahon tsaka yung oras, no? So next. Tulad nung konsepto ng mga Koreano na masyadong popular ngayon, no? Na maraming maliliit na platito, tsaka yung mga pagpapares-pares at pagtaterno-terno ng pagkain, ginagawa na siya sa Cavite kahit nung araw pa. So ang terno-terno, tono-tono ay isang konsepto kung saan kahit ang ulam mo ay pag umuwi ka ng bahay, pag tinanong mo sa nanay mo, "Nay, ano ang ulam?" Pritong galunggong. Pag sinabing pritong galunggong ang ulam mo or tinapang galunggong, ibig sabihin nun, marami kang maliliit na platitos de condimentos, no? Ito ay isang Chabacano word, no? Na kahit simple yung ulam mo, pero marami kang mga iba't ibang condimentos o sausawan na hanggang ngayon ay pinapractice pa rin sa Cavite. Na hanggang ngayon, sa halagang 5 piso o sa halagang 5 piso at 3 piso, makakabili ka ng burong mangga na nakabalot sa isang plastic, makakabili ka ng burong sibuyas, makakabili ka ng atsara na hanggang ngayon pinapractice dun sa palengke. Tapos yung turn na naman ay yung pagmamatch ng mga pagkain. Tulad sa Cavite City, halimbawa kung ang ulam mo ay kare-kare, ang kapartner niya ay adobo seca, tsaka kilawing papaya, no? So maraming paraan at yung ang maganda nito ay yung pagkain mo ay laging sariwa kasi galing sa palengke, tapos may mga baksakan, tapos yung mga tao for the longest time hindi yung mga fast food chains hindi sila nagtagumpay ngayon na lang mga 2005 or 2007. Kasi lahat ng mga tao sa Cavite, like dahil nga mahal nila, hindi sa mahal nila yung tradisyon nila, ito yung kinagawian nila na ayaw nilang palitan, which is nice also. So next slide please. Next slide. Yan. So ito yung mga representative na mga heirloom cuisine sa Cavite, no? So ito yung pansit choco and sutinta, ito yung pansit pusit. Na hindi siya niluluto sa mga restaurant. Ang unang-una lang nagluto ng pansit pusit sa restaurants sa Cavite City ay Asyong, no? Si Sunny Lua. Dahil nga wala namang kakain talaga ng pansit pusit pag nung araw, no? Tapos meron din kaming tradisyon ng paggawa ng kesong puti. Ang tawag namin ay quesillo. Tapos meron din kaming tradisyon ng tamales na isang heirloom recipe rin na discover ko nung ito yung bahagi ito ng pagkain ng aming Kapaskuhan sa Cavite. At itong isang pansit na ito ang tinatawag na pansit puso o pansit de Carahay, para siyang Mickey Bihon gisado, pero ang souring agent niya ay puso ng saging na niluto pala, kilawing puso ng saging. Okay, so ito yung heirloom cuisine. So next. So ito yung mga taong in-interview ko over the years since 1997 nung nagsimula akong mag-interview. Tapos, so ang naisip ko, yung market, yung ating pamilihing bayan, palengke, farms, yung mga small farms, this is a veritable community cultural center. And it's also the economic backbone of the country. So kung mawawala sila, ang daming mawawala rin. So in Cavite City, nakikita ko parang because of culture. Culture is something you do with you that you don't think about, no? Nakikita ko buhay na buhay pa rin yung kultura. May mga taong gumagawa pa rin ng halayang sampalok. May mga small players. Like this guy, no? He's a calamansi vendor, but he grows his own calamansi in Mendez, no? Walang dumadaang middleman or negosyante, but si Winnie Papa, meron siyang 2 kalabaw na ginagatasan niya para gumawa siya ng quesillo o kesong puti na minana pa niya sa mga kanununuan niya. Tapos ito si Baby, taga Salinas, gumagawa siya ng tinapang tunsoy na siya yung mga biktima biktima ng yung mga batas na hindi masyadong nagkaroon ng social preparation yung mga tao. Halos tapos ito si Manong Bert, tubad namatay na siya, Tubong Davao. Siya naman ay gumagawa ng suka nagawa sa saging. Tapos ito si Matet at si Boyong gumagawa ng langgunisa sa palengke. So maraming mga industriya or yung mga pagkain na I mean, I can go on, no? Like this couple, si Aling Nene at si Mang Elmer, taga-Kawit din sila. Nagtatanim sila ng nagko-cultivate sila ng talaba at tahong, no? Tapos ito
Nakakatuwa ang mga storya mo, Ige. Memoryado mo, tagang stories for a better normal. Ang bawat isa sa mga litratong to, alam mo ang pangalan, alam mo ang kanilang tinitinda, alam mo ang kahalagahan ng kanilang mga ginagawa. Nakakatuwa. I just have to go now.
Yeah, this is the last slide actually.
Yes.
I'll just finish like one small no. So ito yung mga tao na living within like 5-kilometer radius. Ito yung like idea ng slow food na all the food stuff like yung galing lang dun sa so walang carbon footprint yung pagkain. Ang pagkain ay mura, affordable dun sa community. So this is what, but basically, on an anthropological standpoint, hindi ako nagme-medal dun sa mga nangyayari. Ito lang yung aking parang nakuha kong notes and na pwede rin pala mangyari ito. So on that note,
you're very correct. In fact, ang pagkain ay dapat una ay you grow your own food. Pangalawa, yung pinakamalapit na source ng pagkain. Hindi kailangan linilipad or dinadaan sa kilo-kilometro para nga ang carbon footprint na tinatawag, yung gasolina, yung pagod, at as much as possible, walang middleman para mas malaki ang kita ng food producer, magsasaka man siya o mangingisda or sa palengke, di ba? Kaya, yes, we agree with everything you're doing, and
so one more point, Deputy Speaker. I just want to tell people na like ngayon sa internet, ang sinasabi nilang next currency ay Bitcoin. Actually, ang next currency para sa ating lahat ay organic seeds. It can give seeds to each and every family and teach them how to plant. This is like one of the most valuable currency that we have in the future.
Very good.
Good seeds.
We grow our own food. Yes. Thank you. But you stay with us because from Cavite, we proceed to the Negros Island. And an expert in Italian cuisine, in Asian food, and in Negros food. I know many people have asked Margarita Flores many questions, but I'd like to talk about culinary heritage. She is from the Visayas. And ano ba ang kaibhan ng pagkain sa Negros? At ano ang kahalaga nito sa ating kabihasnan? At paano mo yan minomodernize kung ginagawa man yan para maging akma ang panlasa sa mga tao? Margarita.
Thank you po, Deputy Speaker. And again, maraming salamat for being the first presenter. Nawawala yung nervyos ko ng konti. But I think that it's wonderful na si Ige set the tone and told us a little bit about what culinary heritage is all about in Luzon. And I think that what's wonderful about our whole archipelago, all 7,000 plus islands, is the fact na we have so many different things from north to south, and it makes our culinary heritage so rich. And it also allows us to realize how important it is precisely to be relevant when it comes to climate change, to really celebrate what grows naturally in all the parts of the Philippines. I think that it's wonderful to bring up a little bit about Batanes here, because we realize that Batanes is so isolated, but it is the northernmost part of our country. And in their place, they are so isolated, but the lifespan of the citizens there is so long because they all eat root crops. And it's something that hasn't changed through the years. And I think that it's a good thing to kind of mention dito sa presentation na ito today, because it also celebrates how each part of the Philippines has its own gems and its own richness that we should celebrate and really kind of parang bring up to everybody's consciousness, so that each part of the Philippines we can celebrate what grows and what allows us to become rich, current, and sustainable. So since my presentation has to do with my home province and Paula's too, Negros Occidental, the other half of Negros Island, of course, everybody knows that the major crop there is sugarcane. And in the 50s and the 60s, this crop is what made our Philippine economy thrive, no? During the time when the Philippine peso was 2 pesos to $1 US, largely what drove that part of our economy was really the fact that sugar was such an driving product from the Philippines that we were selling to the world, no? And I guess it's a very personal thing to me, because that's how my grandfather and my grandmother's family started their business. They were really sugarcane planters and sugarcane traders. And that's probably why I guess my knowledge of how this industry has grown and has also kind of like had detrimental effects on climate change and good effects on the Philippine economy. It's kind of like a balancing act, no? So sugarcane, if you go to Negros and you drive through the province, of course you see sugarcane plantations one after the other. But we also know that in the past, a lot of the fertilizers used to make sugarcane thrive are probably what added a little bit to the pollution in the province, no? I think that there was a study that they were wondering why the incidence of breast cancer in Negros was actually highest from all over the Philippines. And perhaps the explanation could have been because the fertilization for sugarcane plantations go not just from spraying, but it goes underground. So it goes through the water system of the province. And people feel that maybe because the chemicals were already in the water system of the province, this added to the fact that it became toxic for a lot of people. So fast forward to 2016, there was a drive in the province for the Philippines and Negros to be the first initiator of organic planting of sugarcane in the world, in Asia anyway. So I think that also says a lot about what our province has done with regards to making our world a healthier place, no? What piqued my interest actually a decade ago and allowed me to really go to Negros very often, no? Not only to touch base with my youth and my heritage, but really because I met a lot of very young budding organic farmers in Negros 10 years ago. And it really piqued my interest. Why is it that it's in Negros that a lot of the organic planting movement started? And we all know that Negros was really an initiator, no, when it came to organic farming. And up to today, they are also very advanced and been recognized actually not just in our country, but I think globally as one of the real first movers in the organic movement. So I think that in line with what Ige talked about and what this whole webinar is about, we really are looking to not just what we're doing with sugarcane, but also looking at endemic products in the province. So things like batuan, things like kadyos, and other products like batitis that grows in my grandmother's hometown, Valladolid. Kadyos is the pigeon pea. All of these things grow within our areas. Other
Ay, wait,
products.
sarap. Ano yung batit? Alam ko lahat yun. Meron kaming batuan sa Antique. Yung, ano tong batitis? Ngayon ko lang alam tong
Batitis
batitis.
are like tiny baby oysters. They also call it sisi. Sometimes like in Capiz, you find it a little darker. But in our home, in the town of my lola, Valladolid, there's this one that's so maputi. And it's so delicious. And it's really just the oysters that are dito.
Alam ko yung parang medyo maitim. Oo, tas nakababad sa suka.
Yeah, but this one, it has a slightly more delicate taste. And kahit na sinangag lang, or what we call kalo-kalo in Negros, and this, oh my God, it's like super duper, like the best combination. So ingredients like this that we find in our home province, there's of course the kadyos, the pigeon pea, and then other things like takway, which is the stalk, the dried stalk of the gabi plant. All of these things actually people grow in their backyards, no?
Sandali. Marami akong gabi. Ibig sabihin, yung stalk ng gabi, kasi yung dahon ng gabi, ang ginagamit ko pag gumagawa kami ng, ano yung Bicol dish, yung
laing.
Pinangat or laing. Pero yung stalk niya ay linuluto din?
Actually, yes. The nice thing about the gabi plant is that it is the plant that actually illustrates how you do it talagang from the root all the way up to the crop, no? And what's nice about the leaves of the gabi, you can dry it the way they do in Bicol, but the stalk as well, which has a little bit of kati, you have to know how to handle it. But in Negros, we use it and we call it takway, and they do it adobo style, or they put shrimp paste, ginamos to cook it. But it also shows how Filipino cuisine is so adaptable, where we use everything. It kind of is
walang sayang.
Super pioneer in zero waste cooking, no, which is now a trend in all kitchens globally. So this is another dish that's very typical of Negros, the kansi. And these are the dishes that I'm just illustrating in my farm to table restaurant, Grace Park, where we showcase not only traditional Negrense dishes, but how Negrense dishes can also be adapted and used with global ingredients. So if we go to the next slide, of course, this is ulang that comes from Pampanga and from Hagonoy, Bulacan, from the north, but it's river prawn. But we serve it with talangka that comes from Negros. So again, it just shows how river prawn, for example, used to be wild in Pampanga and Bulacan, but because there's now a demand for it, it's now farmed. So we love the fact that, you know, it's a seafood that that's very, very endemic to the Luzon Island. And, you know, it's something that we celebrate, no? Because it's unique in itself.
May I intervene? Yang ulang ay hindi lamang sa Luzon. Meron kami yan sa mga ilog sa bundok sa Pandan Antique. Iba lang ang tawag namin. Hindi ulang, nakalimutan ko yung, pero ganyan din ang itsura at parang ulang galing sa North Antique. Actually protected area yan eh. Hindi ko alam kung meron pa ngayon. Oo.
Actually, Panay Island is so rich when it comes to the different varieties of seafood. And maybe this is a good time to kind of connect our conversation about salt, right, Ige? The Flavier Law kasi was really a law intended, right, to protect the health of the Filipinos, because everybody was saying that the Filipinos were deficient in iodine in our diets. And that's why they made it a law that any kind of salt sold in the Philippines needed to have iodine. Kaya lang, parang it's a little bit outdated. Kaya maybe we can ask you, Deputy Speaker, to help us lobby so that maybe we can adjust the law, because the artisan salts in the Philippines are so beautiful. Like Ige said, Fleur de Sel from France has like an added value because it's an artisan salt. It doesn't have the chemical flavor of iodine. And they're all over the Philippines, whether it's in Ilocos, Antique, Pulupandan, in Negros, Cavite, the salt beds. Our salts are so delicious. And the minute you spray them with iodine, it changes the flavor instantly. So I'm digressing a little bit, no?
Yes,
but
may I request at this point,
lobby.
Yes, not just lobby, but I'll request the researcher expert, Mr. Ramos, who brought this subject matter in this webinar, to help just a simple draft, and I will try to introduce an amendatory law to the Flavier law. Yes.
Okay. We would really appreciate that, because as chefs also, after the foreign chefs came to the Philippines during the Madrid Fusion Manila 3 years that we did that, where the best chefs in the world came here, they were so blown away by the artisan salts. Thanks to people like Paula and Bea and Robbie Crisostomo, who really try to work with the salt producers, who they can kind of set aside and say, wag niyo muna lagyan ng iodine para we can let the chefs taste it, ano? And there's so much of that. So if we can kind of put all of those salt producers together and then have an amendment on the law, I think Fleur de Sel will pale by comparison. Even
my staff are listening. They're with us now. Very good. Mr. Ramos, and all of you, our guests, if you don't mind, you will help draft with us. I'm asking Attorney Ipat Luna, who's with us, my consultant, and Attorney Paula as well, and the Climate Change Commission, and Cherie, my staff, and Tala are listening now. Yes, with your help, we will introduce that amendment to my late best friend, Manong Johnny. I'd also like to say that yung aming kinakain na ulang, ang tawag namin urang. Ige, iniba lang yung pangalan, no? Ulang sa Pampanga, pero urang sa amin. Oo. Sige,
so anyway, please. Yes, to wind up, these are just samples of the other things that we've been doing. The kinilaw, which is again, everybody has their own version all over the Philippines. It's one of the dishes that, as part of Ige's research for Australasia, it is part of what makes the Philippines an island cuisine, and very, very similar to the cuisine in Palau, in Guam, and even in Hawaii, where they do raw fish. But what makes us different, of course, is the fact that we only use vinegar as the souring agent together with our limes. Unlike in Latin America, where they use only citrus, what makes our kinilaw unique is the vinegar part. So, of course, lechon from Negros. It's wonderful that you can get organic pigs in Negros. And we were flying them to Manila when there were still flights, but at the moment we can't do that. And of course, the inasal, where we try to replicate it as much as we can here, to bring in langkawas, which is the blue ginger, that is the marination ingredient that makes the inasal unique. Next slide, please. Then, of course, again, the lechon, we make it into a sinigang, but with batuan. And then, apart from the savory dishes, even our bachoy in Negros, because sugar is the most prominent ingredient in our cuisine, even the broth of our bachoy has not just ginamos, which is our bagoong, but it has a little bit of sugar in it also. So, again, to end, of course, we celebrate the sweet things. You know, pitaw. This is the rice, like the rice bird, the agachonas in Pampanga, but these are sugarcane field birds. They're a little bit smaller, and for a while we were able to fly them into Manila. We hope we can do it again. That's also very unique, and we have it in Grace Park. And then lastly, the sili from the Bago River. The Bago River is a very big, deep river, and this is the hometown of my family. And it's an eel that can grow to 5 feet, and the circumference is about this big, as big as this. So very different from, you know, the unagi and the anago of Japan. So it's a very unique ingredient, and we try as much as possible. We do it braised in coconut milk with achwete, or deep fried like a daing.
Nakakatuwa ang convergence at similarity ng ating mga luto. In our previous episode also on culinary heritage, Professor Joso, who is from Antique, who is with the UP Western Visayas Studies, mentioned a dish called binabak, which is also a coconut-based dish similar to what Chef Margarita mentioned now. Talagang, I'd like to read also a comment of Attorney Ipat Luna, who may be an environmentalist lawyer, but she also loves food. Sabi nga niya, and I will read, amazing how culinary traditions reflect the local ecosystems, inextricably linked. Monoculture in agriculture has done so much damage to culinary diversity. Then later on, I will read all the, wow, dozens and dozens of messages. In the meantime, we look at all the delicious meals prepared virtually. Virtually.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, of course, lastly, apart from the pinisik na manok, which is just a simple way, almost like pinaupo, where we cook the chicken in a palayok with salt in the bottom. That's again an Negrense adaptation of the pinaupo. Then to end, the Napoleones, as we all know, everybody knows about Monsieur Gaston, who was the Frenchman who came to Negros and who helped start the industrialization of sugarcane production. And since he was French, he is, of course, the forefather of the Gaston family. And they say that he had brought a couple of French chefs to Negros. And that's why we have the millefeuille, which is the French Napoleon. And that's why the baking culture in Negros is very high, just like in Pampanga and in Cavite, because these French chefs, they made the pastry, the French style. They also put brain in our canelones. And that's also why they say that because the sugar industry was so rich, and that's probably why the cuisine in Pampanga, where sugar is also a major industry, as well as in Negros, the level of the cuisine is also very high. So just to end, other examples of what we do in Negros, the piaya, the barquillos, and of course dulce gatas, which is again a little bit of influence from Latin America. And just to end, cooking with the palayok, we still use it a lot in Negros. We call it the kulun kulun. And we love the fact that there's uniqueness in Negros, but there's also a lot of similarity with the rest of the Philippines in our culinary heritage.
Yes, thank you. May I also interject again, the palayok is a traditional way of cooking in Antique. In fact, napakayaman ang lupa namin sa clay, at yung pottery sa Tibiao, sa Sibalom, yan ay patuloy na ginagawa ng aming mga micro-enterprises. At siguro si Chef Gaita ay maaring bumili ng mga palayok ng Antique. Pero I'm sure meron din kayong palayok sa Negros. Thank you so much, but please
Thank you very much.
Stay on with us, Margarita. Stay on with us, Mr. Ige. From Cavite in Luzon to Negros Island, we proceed to Mindanao. I think it was in 2018 when I went to Saging Republic. Pag-uusapan po ni Mr. Gatchalian ang kahalagahan ng durian, ng saging at ng iba pang mga pagkain sa pagkaing Mindanao. Ano ba ang uniqueness niyan? Mula sa pinakita ni Mr. Ramos at ni Miss Forrest, yung likas naman na pagkaing Mindanao at ano ba yung indigenous cooking ng mga lumad natin sa Davao region? Gachi Gatchalian ng Saging Republic.
Mabuhay ug madayaw. Siguro po, it will be nice to share muna po kung ano ba yung perspective ko. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I've been a businessman ever since I think I was young. But because of my work, I used to work for this multinational company, Procter & Gamble. And work brought me to Mindanao and discovered Mindanao. And, you know, because I fell in love with Davao, I never left Davao. So I used to be in the fashion industry or fashion business. And then, of course, you know, I was exposed to the many produce of the region. And ang dami-dami namin, you know, Davao City is called the fruit basket of the Philippines because we basically have all the fruits here. And my first culinary adventure actually was durian. And my first food business was when we created before the Saging Republic, was when I put up the business Blue Gray Coffee. And yung Blue Gray Coffee po, sumikat siya dahil dun sa ginawa ko po na durian coffee. So that was in 1998 po when I created the Blue Gray Coffee Shop and introduced the durian coffee. So in 1998, wala po nagsaserve ng durian coffee. Kararating pa lang po. Nag-uumpisa pa lang ang coffee revolution sa Philippines. You know, Starbucks came 1997 and si Figaro at saka si Boss Coffee in the same time frame. And we opened our coffee shop in 1998. So doon nag-umpisa yung aking culinary adventure. Na-expose ako sa mga what we have here in the Davao region. And we know na ang dami-daming durian dito. So nung nag-umpisa kami mag-put up ng business, sabi ko, gagawa ko ng isang negosyo. And then ang nagustuhan ko noon na negosyo is mag-put up ng coffee shop kasi mahilig rin po ako mag-coffee. So that became the inspiration to put up my own coffee shop. Sabi ko, dapat, if I'm gonna put up something or if I'm gonna put up a coffee shop, dapat wala akong kapareho. Dapat merong reason para pumunta ang mga taga Davao or mga bisita natin para pumunta sila doon sa coffee shop ko na yon. So that's why yung durian coffee naging famous siya because kami nga lang ang we were the only one selling durian coffee. And it became an instant hit. You know, somebody from Hong Kong, from Thailand, from Indonesia, from Malaysia even visited our coffee shop because they were so interested about the durian coffee. And then of course, we sold the business way back in 2011. And then, sabi ko nga, ang dami-daming prutas dito sa Davao City. Ang isa pa sa mga naging interest ko is yung banana nga. Ang banana, well, yung saging makikita natin kahit saan, di ba? Kaya nga yung brand story ko ngayon ng Saging Republic, dito nag-uumpisa. Kasi lagi ito sa akin tinatanong, bakit ba Saging Republic ang pangalan ng restaurant mo? Unang-una, we are the banana export capital of the Philippines. We export a lot of bananas from our region. So sabi ko, kung gagawa ako ng restaurant, I want to make sure is yung something na endemic and yung marami na alam ko hindi mauubos. Ang perspective ko rito sa negosyante, sa businessman. I'm not a chef. Siguro I may say mama foodie because mahilig akong kumain. But when I decided to put up itong Saging Republic, yun na naging inspiration ko. No, bawat kanto dito sa Davao City may nagbebenta ng banana Q, may nagbebenta ng pinaypay. So sabi ko, why not elevate the banana and come up with several dishes all revolving around this fruit, you know, the banana fruit. So that's why when I was making the menu, I asked a friend to actually develop the recipe. So ang menu ko lahat is inspired by banana. Ang alam lang natin ng mga ulam is hindi ba yung pochero, alam natin may saging yan. Or yung arroz a la cubana, meron saging yan. But when I created the menu, ang una ko naisip is, bakit hindi tayo gumawa ng sinigang na may saging at pomelo? So that's why I called it sanigang. Okay? Tapos, kung may sisig si Pampanga, hinaluan ko ng sagi yung sisig ko, kaya ko siya tinawag na sisag. Tapos yung humba, I made it more interesting. Ginagyan ko rin siya ng banana Q. That's why I called it banana Q, crusted with banana. So meron din akong adobo. Ang dali-daling ihalo ng saba sa adobo. That's why meron akong sabadobo at sabagnet. So kung titignan nyo, yung aking culinary adventure, pinaglaruan ko talaga yung saging. And that's why it's called Saging Republic. Ang dami kong nagawang mga ulam na halo-halo na iba-iba na dahil inspired by saging. And then, kung alam natin kung meron tayong bibingka na gawa sa rice cake, gumawa ako ng gigingka, which is actually a banana cake. So, even yung dessert ko is inspired by saging. And of course, all kinds of turon. Gumawa rin ako maraming klaseng turon. And then, isa pa sa mga na-discover ko is since we export a lot of bananas, may mga bananas na hindi po siya pumapasa sa requirement na for export. I don't wanna say na-reject siya. So that's why, nagawa po ako ng sarili kong, hindi po siya banana chips or Cavendish chips. Ito po yung mga hindi nakapasa na mga banana at ginawa po namin siyang chips. I think in the previous slide, makikita natin doon, may branding ako doon na chips, nakapack siya ng black, and it comes in several flavors. We have the sour cream, we have the barbecue, we have the cheese. So I really made what is really very, very what's a plenty in our region and came up with something na talagang naka-highlight siya sa banana. Kaya naging popular among the locals because they bring their friends, because yun nga, from appetizer to soup to main courses to dessert, puro banana.
Sabi ko nga, nachos, meron ng banachos pala.
Opo, nagawa rin kami yun nga po, pinaglaruan po talaga namin banana kasi ang dami-dami pala natin pwedeng gawin sa banana. But of course, hindi lang banana lang naman kasi ang nasa Davao, meron tayong pomelo. Kaya yung pomelo, yung pomelo, ginamit ko siya pang-asim sa sinigang. That's why we call it sanigang. Meron ng pomelo, meron pang banana. Nasa previous din po yun na picture.
Ang tanong ko, I know you have many pictures, but ang tanong ko, ito'y innovation mo. Masasabi ba natin na ito ay sinauna? Ibig sabihin, ang ating mga ninuno ay ginagawa na ito? Or ito ay isang innovation ng creativity ng isang batang entrepreneur gaya mo? Or meron ba tayong mga saliksik, mga research ng ating mga lumad sa Davao Region ay nagsimula ng ganitong klaseng paghahalo ng saging sa mga pagkaing hindi usually nilalagyan ng saging?
Yung doon po sa pagkakaalam ko, ang usually like ang isa pong Muslim tribe, yung Kagan, ang kanila pong kasing culinary is based on tino. Ito po yung tino, yung parang sambal na ginagawa nila na ginagamit na yung roasted coconut, turmeric, and hinahalo ng spices. Wala po siyang banana. Yun din pong isa namang tribo, Tagabawa, ang ginagamit naman po nila is yung niluot. Ito naman po yung nagluluto sila ng mga pagkain na nasa coconut, nasa buho ng coconut. So, pwede ko po sabihin na this is an innovation, pero hindi ko po pwede sabihin na angkinin. Because sa dami po ng bananas natin, siguro ang ginagamit lang po nila yung mga saging siguro po panghimagas, kasi ang ginagamit nila, yung pong malalapit sa kanila na kung ano po yung meron sa kanila. So, I may say this is one innovation, pero hindi ko po angkinin na posibleng hindi po sila nakaisip ng parang ganito. Naging mas innovative lang po ako para to make it more commercial and to make it more interesting to everybody. But I'm sure, even po yung ating mga lumad, kasi sa pag-research ko, wala pa po akong nakita na mga ginamit nila yung banana. More of puro mga coconut po na nga ginagamit nila. But I'm sure po maraming bananas.
Example, Gachi, could you kindly tell me, ano ang isang example ng lumad food na alam mo, na na-research mo, or iyong sineserve sa Saging Republic? Lahat yan napakasarap. Yan ay creativity mo bilang chef at restaurateur at tourism association head. Siguro marami nagtatanong din, ano ba ang mga lumad food that is unique to the culture of Mindanao and the Davao region?
nung January po, nagkaroon po kasi kami ng Davao Culinary Night kasi we celebrate our 45th anniversary. So we came up with several dishes inspired by the dishes of Kagan tribe and Tagabawa tribe. Ang dapat po kasi i-introduce namin ito, nagkaroon lang po ng pandemic. Si Tagabawa po.
Mga Tagbawa.
Ilalagay po sa coconut. Tagabawa po.
Tagbawa.
Yes po. Meron po silang tinatawag na niluot. Niluluto po nila yung kanin nila, nilalagay bamboo. So,
Yes.
yun,
Okay.
yes, yun po. Yung po kasi dapat ang next ko ina-inspire po ako doon na dapat haluan ko po ng, yung niluto ko po for example, kasi meron po akong dish na ginawa na yung sa badobo, na ihalo ko po sana sa kanin, tapos lulutuin ko po sana sa bamboo. Tinatry na po namin yun. And that's really inspired by Tagboa. Kasi that's their way of cooking. They use bamboos, a lot of bamboos. And we were able to try it. It's not that we were not able to serve it kasi nga because of the pandemic and but it's something that we can really do and really make it more flavor kasi we can really use the banana inside. Imagine adobo, masarap na haluan pa natin ng saging tapos gagamitin pa natin yung bamboo. So we tried it, masarap po siya. We never just had the chance to really serve it to our customers. But
I'm glad
that's one
binanggit mo ang
inspiration.
bamboo dahil ang bamboo ay isang likas na tanim
Yes.
sa Pilipinas at napakarami sa Antique.
Napakarami.
At kami sa Antique ay gumagamit ng bamboo hindi lang sa bahay, hindi lang against soil erosion, kundi na rin sa aming kinakain. Hindi ko alam kung meron ditong picture yung mga staff ko, pero ilagay ko sa Instagram ko kagabi, yung Ige and Margarita and Gachi and Mr. Villalon, yung lawas ang tawag namin, yung parang may molasses sa loob at yun ay linalagay sa bamboo. I'm not sure if my staff can show it now, but maybe later on when they prepare it. Ito ay mahahanap sa lawaan at meron din sa bugasong. Ayan ayan. Yan ay lawas. Tama ba ako? Baka mali ako. Lawas. Basta masarap. Yan.
So,
yan ay likas sa amin. Tama ba ako? Researcher at researcher si Mr. Ramos, baka mali ako. Okay.
That's pulot in Negros. And
pulot?
Iloilo.
Correct.
We call it pulot. It comes from palm sap. They make it into like and it's a good sugar because it doesn't have the glycemic index of regular sugar.
Correct. Iba-ibang pangalan, molasses, pulot, ang tawag sa amin lawas, at yan ay ginagawa actually sa buong Antique, pero yan ay natikman ko sa Bugasong ngayon o sa Lawaan, at dun din sa Lawaan yung binanggit ko kanina na meron kami mga salt beds. Okay.
Ang Bagobo Tagabawa po, they call it niluot kasi nilagay po dun sa sa bamboo, they call it niluot. Yan, niluot yan. Niluot. Niluot po. Ang maganda po, nakikita natin na ang daming ways na pagluto ng mga pagkain natin sa palayok, sa bamboo. And then I got a lot of inspiration talaga from our tribes.
Okay, thank you so much, and please stay on because we proceed to Giwan, Eastern Samar, where the LGU for a long time has been very much involved and committed to cultural mapping at ginagawa rin nila ang pagmamapa ng kanilang pagkain. Kaya gusto natin malaman ano ba ang uniqueness ng culinary heritage ng Region 8 naman ng mga taga-Eastern Samar, lalo na sa Giwan, at paano natin na-preserve ito at NCCA, nandiyan ka Mr. Villalon, paano natin ma-preserve lahat ng ating pinag-uusapan ngayon. Ano yung tinatawag niyong, is it Paluan or Palawan? Not Palawan, the province, but there's a Palawan culinary heritage in Giwan. Is that correct? May we hear from Rectito, who represents now Giwan Samar. Are you still with us? Rectito Melquiades is with us to speak about Giwan Eastern Samar culture mapping, and the municipal government of Giwan has been in the forefront of culture mapping, as well as planting crops which are climate resilient, and they are promoting the root crop called Paluan. Paluan, are you still there with us? And this root crop may be called different names in different regions and provinces, but they call it Paluan in Eastern Samar. May we hear from Rec Tito? Or maybe he lost his sight. Sorry, we're also much delayed. It's been an hour and a half, but he prepared slides. Maybe we will have them later, but I would like to hear from Mr. Villalon of the NCCA. How do we preserve all of this? Whether it is the mapping of the food of Eastern Samar or Negros, or even the salt beds of Cavite, or even the indigenous cuisine of the Lumads of Mindanao, and of here in Antique. How do we do it? And then after you, if we have Mr. Rectito again, we will have him.
All right. Actually, yung ginagawa namin sa NCCA, yung mapping is a form of research, you know. Bago pa dun sa research, we try to empower the people. We really have to make it a community-based. That's the approach of NCCA. Most of the mapping before are really more on the experts or the researchers. But nakita namin na kapag ang culinary heritage ay grounded, yung galing sa tao talaga, yung tulad ng sinasabi ni Ige, mahalaga yon kasi mas sustainable yon. So yun yung first step, the valuing. Kaya nga dito sa presentation ko, ang culinary arts ay napapabilang sa form ng intangible cultural heritage. Ito yung lahat ng mga practices at mga representations, expressions natin. Tulad nitong picture dito, no? This is something of history. This is from Pampanga, the Panicilios de San Tolentino. So when the friars came at nakita na may marami, Pampanga is so rich, no? This is where this is the region where I come from. Actually, I'm based here in Tarlac, no? At nakita nila itong mga katutubo natin na gumagawa nito at sabi nila, ano kaya merong mga itlog, no? At na-introduce ito kasi yung itlog noon, ginagamit yung egg whites for the building of churches. So ang daming egg yolks. Kaya hence, itong tradition ito hanggang nandyan. So it's an intangible heritage. I agree with si Ige or si Margarita saying that it's not just the food, but it's the whole tradition that would come with it. So next slide, please. So siguro ito yung ginagawa namin, Deputy Speaker, do sa NCCA. We try to capture yung culinary arts in terms of where we locate it in the 5 domains. Pag tinignan mo yung culinary arts, parang pagkain lang yan. Kaya palagay ko ito yung kailangan sa mga kabataan. Hindi lang siya pagkain, may rootedness siya. In fact, sa lahat ng mga intangible heritage, ang culinary arts pwedeng mapabilang sa 5 domains. Ibig sabihin sa UNESCO framework, na high level siya. Halimbawa, siguro meron kayong mga kasabihan tungkol sa pagkain sa Antique. Di ba may mga kasabihan na minsan pabiro, no? Yung may asim ka pa. Or pag sinabi mo ang pag-aasawa ay hindi parang mainit na kanin na basta mo na lang isinubo at iluluwal mo. So ibig sabihin itong mga inspiration na ito integrated. Yung pangalawang domain, yung performing arts, makikita mo yan sa ating pagkain. Kaya lahat ng festivals natin, marami sa festivals natin naka-name after food. Or kung hindi food, yung mga ingredients that come with it. Or when you want children to learn, kasi that's also what NCCA is doing, no? How you convert all these mapping forms for learning. For example, the song Bahay Kubo will teach the children about the different ingredients. And there are so many folk songs that deal with the different ingredients that we have. Or the domain 3, which will be about social practices, will talk about how do we locate this food waste, this food system, where in the life cycle. So yun yung maganda, hindi lang siya sa ritual, but there are customs that is from birth to death. Like for example, growing up, hindi yan pwedeng mawalan ka ng pansit kapag may birthday ka. Pero ngayon, parang spaghetti na, basta something long life pa rin yung titingnan mo, noodles. Or in the Cordillera where I worked for the 20 years, pinikpikan is part of our ritual food. And that part of ritual is not only because you eat it, but it's part of looking at omens, no? For wedding, for death, etc. Now, the domain 4, dito maganda siguro, Deputy, yung ginagawa nyo, no, in terms of food waste or culture as part of the knowledge of the universe. Because when you talk about food, you have to fix it or point it or map it hanggang sa ingredients, sa ecological processes. So when you talk about food waste, hindi lang yung finished product. Ito yung problema sa mga kabataan ngayon. They only look at the finished product, and hence, mas popular ngayon ang mga fast food. But they forget that these food waste are actually going to the source, and the source
I will just take note of that. Mas popular ang fast food. Hindi. Mas popular na ngayon ang slow food. Our partner for this webinar now is a Slow Food Movement Manila. No, fast food is not popular, not at least with us here in this Facebook session. We go for slow food and indigenous cooking and for resilient food systems, right? And the NCCA will continue to support, document, and promote and conserve our indigenous culinary heritage.
Right.
Yes.
So,
continue, please.
Yung ginagawa niyo po, maganda yung popularization natin ng ginagawa sa Dayaw. Yung Dayaw as a form of yung ating TV program. But actually, those content came from our subcommission, that's the Subcommission for Cultural Communities and Traditional Arts, that are mapped all these knowledge systems. Kaya nga pagsamo ang food ay part ng IKSE, Indigenous Knowledge Systems and Practices. So, hindi lang yung natikman mo siya. Even yung language na kasama doon, pati yung paano yung preservation techniques na binabanggit kanina nila Margarita or nila Gachi from Lumad, no? So kasama siya sa food waste natin. At yung panglima na part ng intangible heritage, yung traditional craftsmanship, ito yung hindi nakikita kaagad. Pero attached sa food waste natin, sa ating culinary heritage, are all the crafts that come with it. For example, if you make puso in Cebu, you know how to weave. Kaya pag nawala ang weaving tradition mo, mawawalan ka. O yung sa Pangasinan, yung patupat. Diba? Yung patupat, may parang banig siya na ididip mo yung glutinous rice at doon yung sugar, yung molasses doon. So that weaving tradition is part. So yung kahit yung paggagawa ng asin, no, binabanggit ni Ige kanina. Alam niyo ba sa Pangasinan, napakahalaga ng salt beds kasi diyan galing yung inspiration, kaya yung Pangasinan tinawag na Pangasinan, no? The place where asin comes from. So even yung pottery, yung pots are diverse because you have a pot only for asin. Meron kang pots for cooking, but you have also a pot for asin. Meron kang gano'n. So that kind of variation, if we look into climate change, if biodiversity is an indicator of the health of the environment, you also have a health of the people and the expressions. This would be cultural diversity. So the more diverse a culture is, that means it's more healthy. That means we have to know what are the different kinds of systems that we have. And how do we do that? We need to map, we need to document. And where does the documentation lie, or the bulk? The documentation would have to be the people themselves. That's the framework NCCA is doing, the empowerment coming from the ground. So yung pagsusulat na ginagawa ng NCCA, ang nagsusulat po ay local peoples. Marami po sa aming mga forms, next slide po, no, ay mga ginawa po mismo ng mga tao. Kaya pumupunta kami sa isang lugar, sila po ang nagmamap. Kaya part ng pillars ng intangible heritage ay yung ICH or Intangible Cultural Heritage is traditional yet contemporary. Ganda ng tanong kanina ni Deputy, no, tungkol dun kay Gachi. Kasi pag sinabi mong heritage, ang heritage, yung sa law natin, sa Republic Act, merong presumption of importance pag more than 50 years. At marami sa food nating tradition are more than 50 years. Now, if you start a tradition ngayon and it becomes popular in for people, maybe that would become the heritage of the next generation. Like for example, na halo-halo. Wala naman tayo ice noon, no? But ito galing pa ito from an older tradition, yung panghimagas na tinatawag. But when you reinvent it, it becomes contemporary. But ang mahalaga is that it is living and that it is continued. The second point there is that it is inclusive, meaning if people relate with it, it's representative, it's an identity marker. So nung nag-mapping kami dyan sa Antique, meron dyan sa North Antique, I forgot the town, no? Pero meron silang ingredient dyan at may festival sila na yung patuyaw, which is a kind of shrimp. Meron siyang sipit, no? At yung patuyaw ay it grows only in very clean environment. It's an indicator of health, no? And it's a representative of a community in terms of their taste. So itong pillar na ito, very important to. Kasi pag nawala yung mismong heritage na yun, you lose an identity. So that's what we need to teach the young people. That's why slow food, ang maganda sa slow food is you have time to talk, you have time to share. The young people observe what's the process, and it's very much community-based. So next po. So ito po yung yung ginagawa po namin sa mapping, no? Sa product ng mapping after itong mapping. Matagal na po ang mapping, marami pong klase ng mapping sa Philippines. And we acknowledge sila, Professor Eric Cerudo, o yung mga nauna. In fact, nung panahon ni Quirino, meron na tayong mapping, Deputy, and also our listeners. Yung panahon ni Quirino after the war, kinumission niya lahat ng school teachers to map, hindi pa ginagamit yung word na map, to write about the heritage. At kasama doon sa ating historical data papers ang food. So marami po doon. Kaya kung gusto nyong tumingin doon, alam nyo sa National Archives of the Philippines. Yun ang uso ngayon, no? Hinahanap yung mga recipes, mga heritage recipes. And yung as early as 1950s, after the war, nagsulat po yung mga teachers, each town. So ganun yung sanang mangyari. Ang gusto namin sana sa NCCA, what we're doing is a mapping of each town, and that includes the culinary heritage.
Can we ask you in the NCCA to already post that and upload that? Because this information is very, very important. But we in the Zoom session, which is live streamed on Facebook, which will be perpetually in our Facebook, pero ilan lang libo yan. Pero kung ilagay natin forever dyan, in every LGU, as you said, and let us give attribution to the researchers who did the research. Let's say it was written by Ige Ramos, then we attribute that. If it was written, let's say, by Datu Pendatun of last week or whoever researcher, I think the NCCA has to put all this information together because you already have a lot of information. But what we need to do is to put it together in one platform, and then we spread that link so that everybody, whether you are abroad and in a Centro Rizal venue of the DFA, or you are an overseas Filipino working, let's say, in Europe or during this pandemic, or you are in a province, in a hinterlands, in some place in the Philippines. So may I ask the NCCA to share this knowledge, para akong dayaw, no? Dayaw, our knowledge, our pride, because really
Yes.
this is our knowledge and our pride. And whatever documents and pictures and video I have in Dayaw, of course, is also NCCA property. So perhaps, Mr. Villalon, you can take the lead, as I said so a few weeks ago, to put all this information in something very attractive that perhaps Mr. Ramos can be a consultant, since he's an award-winning book designer and author.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Speaker.
I'm sure Nick Lizaso, our chair, would agree with this.
Yes, definitely. Kasi ang aim natin sa NCCA doesn't just gather dust in yung ating research, but to popularize. No, we want people to see it. Actually, meron na po tayong nagsisimula ng baseline data natin sa cultural mapping, yung mga sinasabit ng LGU. Now, if you want to extract yung culinary arts, which is part of Domain 3, that will be very good. No? So, kaya yung continuing on, sinabi natin ng culinary arts ay napakalaga, is a repository of values. In our values research ngayon, ang culture, arts, and tradition, which includes culinary arts, is already identified by the Filipino people as part of the top 19 values for the Filipinos. So I don't think it would be difficult to convince people the importance of mapping or preserving their heritage. Next slide, please. Ito yung gusto ko i-share dito, na kapag malalim ka doon sa pananaliksik tungkol sa pagkain, siguro magsisimula ang pagkain in terms of the realm of the senses and the physical. I'm using Houston here, and one of a framework that I use for mapping also. But if it becomes deeper, that food is not only for the senses. Hindi lang yan bubusugin o malalasahan. Itong pagkain nito becomes a historical marker, the way Ige is saying, or psychological, because these are memories of childhood. Lahat kayo nagsasabi ng ganyan. But if you go deeper also, that can also be in the realm of the mythic and the symbolic. At marami sa mga nakausap naming mga experts o yung mga practitioners in the field look at food as something so mythic and symbolic that it becomes an integral part of being Filipino, or kung hindi Filipino, as part of their own ethno-linguistic grouping. Okay, next po. So ito yung mga ginagawa namin here. We are trying to safeguard it. We have revitalization at NCCA. We try to do transmission and dissemination. We are challenging actually the education also department na yung pagtuturo sana ng TLE. Kasi dito nagtuturo. Karamihan sa TLE, marami pa rin ang mga masyado nakafocus doon sa Western cuisine. Hindi naman masama yun, pero sana bigyan ng puwang, lalo na yung local cuisine. Kasi nga, minamaliit, or kung hindi man minamaliit, tinitingnan na ordinaryo lang ito. So we're doing also preservation. We're also doing a lot of research. So part of this research, next slide please, is that this is what we do in cultural mapping. So we have a book, so actually Deputy Speaker is asking a book. This is actually for free, and we will put this online. This is how to do cultural mapping, and part of this cultural mapping is a big chunk, which is to map natural heritage, intangible,
very good,
tangible. It's in PDF files, so actually we will load it soon because we want people to understand, and perhaps they can have their own ways also. Kasi ang NCCA bukas naman doon sa hindi lang yung ini-impose ng pamahalaan. Merong ways din yung iba on how to map food. For example, pwede ang atake mo is more on traditions. Pwede yung atake ng halimbawa is more on climate change. So you have to protect first the culinary arts that deal or that are very, very vulnerable in terms of climate change. So whatever that is, the book here will help us. This is one output that we have, Ma'am Lauren. No, this is an example of cultural mapping in Pasay. They have a tradition which is called the yung adobong kabayo. Bakit kabayo? Ang nung trace nila through cultural mapping yung locals, that yung Pasay pala, inuuwian ng mga tao noon. Sila yung parang from Manila, umuwi yung mga karwahe doon sa Pasay. Kaya yung mga kabayo ito, mahal na mahal. Hanggang ngayon, pag naghuhukay ngayon ng mga bahay, meron pa rin mga horseshoe na makikita sa Pasay. Pero itong tradisyon na ito, sapagkat pag matanda na yung kabayo, talagang sinasabi nga natin, Pilipino walang nasasayang. At meron silang ganitong tradisyon. Hanggang ngayon...
Very interesting. May I ask you to please upload the soft copy of the culture mapping toolkit in your NCCA website, which I may also put in my Facebook page. And if you have a hard copy, we can give the cultural and tourism officers of every local government interested to do their own culture mapping. Hindi naman kailangan face-to-face lahat, pwedeng mag-virtual culture mapping, lalo na ang ating mga DepEd teachers.
Right. They are our resources, tama-tama doon. Ma'am Lauren, that itong mapping, itong forms na ito are part of the book already. Now we're trying to, there is a grant actually from NCCA for those LGU who need assistance in terms of cultural mapping. We have a pool of trainers, facilitators to help the LGU out. And if they want to write it in local language, they can. And some have already reclaimed that. Kasi hindi mo makakapture yan, lalo na yung ingredients, madali kapag nasa local language. Isa sa nakita namin, pag nagmamap, ang gandang i-describe ang food kapag nasa local language. Buhay na buhay.
Of course, yes. Because why would the Kinaray speak in Tagalog o English? Pero talaga sa local language. Kaya this really goes beyond food. Now, I think on the line na ang ating eksperto of si Rectito from Giwan Samar. I know you still have slides there, but may we ask Rectito to join us? Does he have internet already? He was supposed to tell us about the crop revival, the local resilient root crops in Giwan Samar if we have him. If we don't have him, then we continue with Arvin Villalon, and then we wrap up because I'm being told it's 45 minutes overtime, and I will not be able to read all the questions of last week and this week, but I will post all the comments on Facebook. Am I allowed to do that? Let me see. Okay, he got disconnected. Oh, I'm so sorry. Maybe we can have another time because he is cultivating local climate resilient root crops. But so to wrap up, Arvin, can you show us your last slide? And we are very grateful to all our guests today. Yan. So itong UNESCO inscriptions of intangible cultural heritage, naka-inscribe na ba ito sa Pilipinas or we are still applying?
So we are working on this na sana sa culinary heritage natin, umabot tayo dito kasi marami tayong yaman pagdating sa culinary heritage. So sa UNESCO, sa ICH, may dalawang klase ng parang distinction. One is that your culinary heritage can be part of the representative list of the ICH of Humanity. So when I was sitting with the ICH before, for UNESCO, alam mo, isa sa na-approve namin itong beer culture in Belgium. Nag-apply lang sila doon, no? So, at kasama din dito yung isang ICH, yung list of the ICH in need of urgent safeguarding. So, halimbawa itong flatbreads, no? This is a tradition in Turkey, in Kazakhstan. So, ang tanong namin sa Pilipinas, at tanong din ng ibang mga kasama namin internationally, bakit sa food heritage natin, wala pa kayo sinasubmit para for inscription? So yun ang challenge sa atin kasi pag napunta ka doon sa ICH of the world, that means it is not only the heritage of the Filipino people, but a heritage of all. So pag halimbawa yung French cuisine, no, andun naka-inscribe sa UNESCO. At isang maganda rin dito, yung UNESCO Creative City of Gastronomy. So meron na tayong dalawang creative cities, ang Cebu at ang Baguio, pero sila ay nasa crafts at nasa sa industry, digital technology, but sana merong mga centers. Halimbawa, I think Angeles would like to apply for Creative City of Gastronomy. So what if, let's say, Bacolod or Silay or kung ano man yung city na napakayaman sa culinary heritage at ito kailangan ma-recognize. I think it's high time. So, but where do we start? We start from research. We start from, of course, our own documentation. It should be grounded. Hindi lang ito dapat yung motivation para sa akin. It's just only parang extra na lang yan. But for us Filipinos, we need really to document our food. And that's why during the COVID, maganda yung resulta. Kasi marami sa aming research doon nagsasabi na dahil sa COVID, napilitan sila, itong mga matatanda at bata nag-interact. So the older people now, because they're growing their food, are actually teaching the young people not only about growing, but how to prepare the food. So
thank you. Yes, thank you so much. And we acknowledge our viewers from Antique, Cotabato, Washington, D.C., Mandaluyong, Ilocos Norte, Mountain Province, Quezon City, Metro Manila, Cavite, Muntinlupa, Bacolod City, Italy, Bulacan, and many more. Oh, ang dami kong comments dito. I will try to read some. Baka sumaman loob 2 weeks na kung di nakakabasa ng comments. Okay, Gian Adesas, Maria Veronica Castro, Fabiola Torres Hidalgo, Nikki Pahati, Cherry Castro, Romel Resurrection, Flor Lopez de Leon, May Elizabeth Pugarian, Sally Naya, Lester Alcazar, Thorny Rose John Tonko from Malang, Cotabato, Nisidor Aguirre Leacock, congrats for making Antique beautiful and competitive. Well, self-serving naman, pagbasahin ko to eh. You're the best asset of Antique. Keep up the great job. Very proud. Thank you po. Duro gid nga salamat. Prizel Grave Seco Balagtas. Shout out from Washington, D.C. ni Seder Aguirre Leacock, McKen. Good morning from Mandaluyong. Abigail Fiona Cruzada, Sheila Marie Owarde, Sarah Jane Escario, Donna Sanidad, Jenny Ferlin Jimenez Macaltao, Jopel Alcosaba, congrats Kong for making Antique a rising star. Thank you. Angel Faith, Gemma Regina Pestano Corpus, Jack Hizon Perez, Lucia Gracia Penales, Maria Madeline, Antonio Mauricio, Hair Shaft, BGC, I need a haircut. Hair Shaft Ariel, Alan Carlo Arboleda, Araceli Banasha, Rona Liza Alegado Lacambra, watching from Hawaii. Mangantayon, thank you very much for this essential topic. Mary Grace Urfilia, our dear Congresswoman. Naku, maraming nanonood sa Antique. Thank you for this important discussion you initiated. Yes, thank you. Elijah Farnican from Bontoc Mountain Province, Dinel Cacno Jr. from the Climate Change family, also Cara Garilao. We used to bring our guests to the salt beds in Kawit, Mr. Ramos, as part of our community-based heritage tours with the Cavite El Viejo Heritage Tourism Association. The participants were amazed that it existed close to Metro Manila. Cara Garilao, President Emilio Aguinaldo had salt beds, one of the income streams after the revolution. Thank you for your input. Rahima Alba, yes, Kevin Connolly, encourage everyone to visit Aguinaldo Shrine. Yes, we have in Kawit, please do. Cara Garilao, again, very active. She's yummy daw ang Cavite cuisine. Gemma Regino Pastano, Shao, Professor Shao, wow. Shao Chua, we were just with him yesterday and he says, hi, Boss Ige. Ikaw pala ang boss ni Professor Shao Chua. Rohuela Calibjo. Very good. Salamat Gid. Rodelin de Tomas Malones. Thank you very much. As I continue to watch the program of Congresswoman Legarda, the more I love to live in the farm. That's true. Professor Chow, you know that what you eat is what you are. Yes, George Harrison. Yes. Bianx Magilio, I love how you're able to collate and showcase these stories that came to life by including pictures that depict the scenarios. Very informative and interesting. Hindi po sa akin yung pictures. Thank you to Mr. Ige Ramos. Thank you to Ms. Gaita Forest. Thank you to Mr. Arvin Villanon. Thank you to Mr. Gatchalian. Thank you very much to all our guests this morning. And Cara, of course, my good friend Cara was asking about the different kinds of pansit. Naku, that's another topic altogether because her husband is a chef. Well, he cooks. Jojo Jimenez, I'm from Cavite. Nice to learn about the culture from our town. Mabuhay. Then Dulle Adlawan, good day po. And we're watching from Muntinlupa. They love the webinar. Nikki Pahati from Bulacan. So very interesting. Food is diplomacy and our ancestors were sophisticated enough to know this. Cara Garilao, 19th and early 20th centuries, did the sugarcane planters already use fertilizers? Yoli Doblon, the head of the Senate Albiremo office. Yes, ma'am. Ang gabi stock can be included sa laing. Nako, kasi si Attorney Doblon ay Bicolana. Susubukan ko po. Nonoy Andan, watching from Bacolod, Negros Occidental. Very informative. Cara Garilao, masarap daw ang Napoleones. Nako, masarap nga. Sarah Jane Escario, sana po you can share the ingredients. Pwede kayang hingin sa ating mga guests. Alam kong sekreto nyo ang recipe. Pero si Mr. Ramos naman, marami siyang libro. I asked Cherie and the Climate Change Commission, Victoria, just like we give away my books, I'll give one Musée du Quai Branly French version book to our Facebook viewers. One, I'll give the Hibla ng Lahing Filipino. I'll give the protected areas, and we will purchase one book of Mr. Ramos and give it to our Facebook viewers. The seeds I save from the food I eat, we will also give for free, as well as the Department of Agriculture starter kits from the ATI. Really interesting information from all the speakers, and the garden to table food inspiring from Gemma Regina Pestano Corpus. May we ask also from Sarah Jane Escario to upload some recipes. Kung papaalam po tayo sa kanila, kung sino po ang pwede mag-share ng recipe, ay ilalagay po natin sa page ng NCCA sa lahat po ng ating mga Facebook. Sheila Diaz Meneses, teka, si Sheila sa Tacloban, sarap naman yan. Bianx Magilio, interesting idea, a variety of dishes with bananas. Kay Gachi, baka naman you can share a recipes, purely innovative and delicious cooking. Thank you for the information. And then, dami. Tony Aguilar, Tony is with my staff in Dayao. We feature the biscuits of Aching Lilian Borromeo in one of the episodes of Dayao, okay? In our forthcoming episodes of Dayao, everything we talked about last week and this week we will put in one episode or 2 episodes. We will do culinary heritage, slow food. We will partner with slow food and the culinary movements in every LGU for the coming episodes of Dayaw or on ANC. Bettina Pangilinan Ariola, we agree that I choose slow food over fast food as part of our changing lifestyle for better health. Maria Elizabeth Pogarin, preservation of intangible heritage should prioritize what the community deems significant to their identity. Likely elements to mobilize community in which the latter is eager to protect should be kept from dying. Luisito Villaferte Labsan, good morning. Yes, Bettina Ariola, what brings us together as a family, even across borders? That's true. May Elizabeth, food is an expression of how we value the raw materials around us. Yes, that's true. Again, Cara Garilao, just wondering, is there a risk that slow food might be associated with a more prosperous class? No, as we said, ang slow food konektado yan sa mga tinatanim na mga gulay, sa mga katutubong kaalaman, at hindi dapat maging elitista ang ating mga sinaunang pagkakain at ang slow food. No, it should not be perceived that way. Fortunata Atienza Capala, good morning from Rome, Italy. I say yes to slow food. I love to cook traditional food using our traditional kitchen utensils so that while cooking, it brings me back home in our hometown of Taal. Taga Taal si Fortunata Atienza Capala na ngayon ay nasa Rome, Italy. So I have read some of them, and those I have not read, I will read next week, and I will post all of it on my Facebook page. Yes, I keep on getting these reminders that we are 2 hours. Duro gid salamat sa akon mga kasimanwa nanonood sa ating lahat. Thank you so much to all our guests. Thank you to our partners, the Climate Change Commission, most especially, and to Margarita, to Gachi, to Rek Tito na hindi natin nakasama pero naghanda siya, to Arvin, and to Ige, and to, did I miss everyone? Anyone? And to the NCCA, all of those who have been giving me all this information and briefers. I think my SIM card in my brain is overflowing with all this information. But thank you for your interest in all the stories that we do for a better normal. And as we know, ang pagkain ay hindi lang po, sa pagkain, ito'y isang heritage po natin. Our intangible culinary heritage is our culinary heritage is part of our intangible heritage that we will document. And so the assignment of the NCCA is to put all the information together and to give, we will give away the toolkits, hard copy with the permission of NCCA, and they will also post it online so that all LGUs would be able to know. Just a reminder, we have a pending output of the cultural mapping that we did in Antique before the pandemic, and there's just some finishing touches that need to be done. So my staff and the NCCA will continue working on that after this webinar. It's exactly 2 hours, and we are a bit hungry. And so thank you. We offer our blessings and our prayer for the frontliners, for all those who have nothing to eat, for all those who have little to eat, for all those serving us. We offer our prayers, and please let us plant. Let us grow our own food, no matter how small. Segregate garbage at source, recycle, and compost. Plant on every open space. Mag-recycle ng bote, lata, plastic. Maski nakatira sa isang maliit na 10-20 square meter ay maaring magtanim sa mga naresikulong mga lalagyan. Maski anong klaseng gulay, maski kangkong o alokbati, anuman ang tumubo, magtanim po tayo. Maraming salamat sa lahat ng ating panauhin na nagbigay ng kanilang panahon, nag-google ng kanilang kaalaman para po tayo ay matuto. Correction lang po, yung aking sinabi ay lawas. I think I pronounced it wrongly earlier. I would also like to say that yes, The shrimp that we showed on pictures, that's the patuyaw that is found in my hometown of Pandan in Antique. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Be blessed. Be forever grateful. Thank you.